Welcome to the Not Null Podcast. I'm just an AI voice, but here are your real hosts, Kevin Doyle, Paul Bratzlavsky, and Bobby Davis.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Not Null Podcast. I ask you to do just one thing if you could. If you've listened to any of our other podcasts previous to this one, I would love if you would leave us a review somewhere. That would really, really help us. And if you could share this podcast with somebody, because the only way that we kind of grow, that would be great. We would really, really appreciate that. So let's jump into our first topic this week then. Let's talk about TVs in college. So let's talk about something near future, right? I think we can talk about this as being near future, where somebody recently said, and we'll talk about this, who that was in a second, but somebody recently said that there'll be a time where a TV as big as your wall might cost only $100, but a college degree might cost $1 million. Oh
my God.
So this was said by a billionaire, Mark Andreessen. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Andreessen. Mm-hmm. He is, I don't know if you guys know this guy. I've heard of him before, but he is a co-founder of Mosaic and Netscape. He's on the board of Meta.
Yeah, he made Netscape.
So he's, we've heard of some of the things that he's done before. But he wrote a blog post, and the blog post was called "Why AI Won't Cause Unemployment." And the kind of the takeaway from this blog line was this line where he basically said, the race to the bottom in unregulated technology, like TVs, make them cost less. And the race to the top in regulated fields where technology is heavily regulated, there's a race kind of to the top and to how much can it cost. Thence a TV costing $100 that fills your wall and a degree costing $1 million. And it's funny because we were looking at buying a new TV for the new space that we're moving into. And we looked at them the other day. Did you know you can get a 72-inch TV for like $500 now?
Yeah, it's insane.
It was 75, man.
Wow, that's 75. Sweet. No, my right. TV I have in the back there, it's like I bought it for $100 and then it's like 4K. I was like, what the hell? Like, I don't remember TVs being so affordable.
So cheap. So what do you guys think about this idea of regulation affecting technology, and this kind of one where it's heavily regulated and it becomes more and more expensive, and this one where it's unregulated, like the race to the bottom?
Yeah, I'll take it first. I think because we're in the education space, we're at Coder Foundry. So like we are sort of pseudo regulated.
Yeah.
Right. And I can tell you that regulations cost money. So like, so we have to pay a percentage of whatever we make back to the state of North Carolina because they want to regulate us as a proprietary vocational school. Part of the problem with colleges, in my opinion, is there's two main problems. The reason why college is just out of control expensive. Maybe three. I'll get into my tinfoil hat one in a second. First is accreditation in general. So like when you accreditate a college course, you can't change it. It's really hard to change. So, and we see this so much in our space, which is software development or programming. Whereas if you go to a 4-year CS degree, the stuff they teach is older because accreditation is one of the problems. Like in order to change that course, you got to go through a lot of rigmarole and everything like that. The reason they want to be accredited is to get federal student loans. So like if you get a federal student loan and you get the student to get on a loan, the federal government writes the institution a check, and then the student comes to the school. So they don't have to like really earn anything. Whereas opposed to Coder Foundry or something like that, you come in, you got to we've got to convince you to pay us outright, or you get a loan from a third party, or we have like what's called an income share agreement where we don't take anything from you until you get a job. So their outcomes are sourced. So what happens is the college, I think, sees the avenue of say, okay, how many people can I get on a student loan? Like it's like there's no incentive for them to lower the price, and no incentive for them to create a degree that gets the outcome. So they want to lower the standards to get in. They want to create as many degrees as possible because they have a broader audience to market to get in enough people to get in student loans. And then the government doesn't care about outcomes. They care about accreditation. And I think that's the change that needs to happen. And the other thing that can't happen because of accreditation is you can't really start a university. It's really hard because you got to get accredited just to start one. And so as you see, if there is no competition in a space, the price goes up. And you're seeing it go up by like, where does it make sense? My third tinfoil hat one is In the bigger schools, I read a study of where Houston Athletic Department is losing somewhere $40-50 million a year on their football team. Where does that money come from? It doesn't come from ticket sales like everyone thinks it does. It comes from the broader, receipts from student loans. So, if the University of Houston has a terrible football team, I guess you can blame the United States government. I mean, they need to give them more money.
To me, like, I talk to a lot of people from other countries, and they always talk about their education experience, and it's never like, oh, how much money I spent on school, and talk about these ridiculous loans. So like, I would say there's something definitely wrong with like our system. Like from the standpoint, it's like you have to go into severe debt as a student to just, let's say, stay competitive in terms of like, if you value college education. I think college education is important, but I feel like there's definitely need to be more competition. And I like the fact that a lot of like tech jobs are dropping the requirement, for having a college degree. Not all companies, and it's still important. But what I want to see and will be cool is, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I think we need something that adds more competition, is having these company do their own certifications or degrees or whatever you want to call it, nano degrees, whatever. And people like literally could learn from the company that they want to apply to, and they don't have to go to college altogether, or more privatized like education. That's why like a lot of people say all these weird, like different things about boot camps, but I much rather see options for students which are more affordable in terms of time and life investment, like what a college degree is, and also offers like similar return on investment. Because as a software engineer, like your third year, it's not uncommon to make, 6-figure income. And to me, like, it's like, do you go to computer science degree for 4 years, and that's like your time of life invested, and then after you graduate, you still need to build your portfolio, you still need to build your experience? Or do you go to, let's say, a boot camp or a vocational school for like 6 months, a year, and then once you graduate, you get hired? That 3 years that you would have been in university, that's 3 years of work experience and growth. And so instead of going 4 years to college, you go 1 year to vocational school, like a boot camp or what have you, 6 months, whatever, and then you get a job, and 3 years, you're making at least 6 figures. And I think people should have those options available.
Right. And I think that you're seeing it in the studies that are coming out now. We just saw something from hired.com earlier today about where they're getting talent from, and increasingly, and this isn't a commercial for Coder Foundry, it's just that they're hiring from boot camps, like they are. And the reason is, I think, is the job ready thing, the skills that are directly applied to them. So in other words, like if you go to NC State here, and I haven't looked at their curriculum up and down, you're not going to learn React or Angular. You might build something in Angular on your own, but they don't have a course to teach you that. And they definitely don't have a course like here at Coder Foundry where we're going to teach you modern web development with C# and ASP.NET at the degree that we do it. You might take, a 1 semester course that's 2 days a week, part-time, and you build Hello World pretty much from the console and say, hey, now I've learned C#. And that's not what they're talking about. We're talking about building complete things out of here. So I think college needs to have incentive to be way more competitive in the marketplace. And then you have just junk degrees, like some degree, I've talked to a lot of people. One guy's got a degree in environmental something, whatever, and it's like, who's hiring for that? Like, what college kid is going to a large corporation to tell them how to save energy at this point, at 20, 22 years old? And like, you should use windmills. And we're like, well, that's a great plan. But like, how do we do that? Like, what's the mechanics for doing that? And these degrees don't line up with reality in a lot of cases. A lot of times, people get a law degree, but they don't really teach them to pass the bar, and they don't teach them how to market themselves. So there's a lot more to that. So if we started a law boot camp, it would be about learning the bar to pass the bar exam. But then we would be showing them like, okay, you want to be a personal injury lawyer? This is what you do. You want to argue in front of the Supreme Court? This is the path you got to take. Here's the avenue for getting a job. I don't think colleges do that at all. They just want the student loan. You can attend or not, and then no one tracks outcomes. So I would like to see us track outcomes more, and then have degrees that matter. I do believe probably in overseas, number one, high school is way more harder than it is in the US, way harder, way more focused. You have more of a track where you do things. And then college should be way forward. Now, in the US, to be fair, there are some schools, dude, if you graduate Harvard Law, you're a made person. Like if you do that, if you go to MIT, yeah, they're doing great things, but then it drastically goes off in quality after that. There's 8 or 9 that are really, really, really great. And then there's a lot of glut in the system that are just sucking up student loans, and they're not really care about the student outcome for it in any way, shape, or form. And that's what
I think because of the monopoly that they have on education and not enough competition, they're able to charge these ridiculous prices. And to be honest, I had this discussion with my daughter, and for her, she's like in the Navy, so she's going to have her school get paid for. But I told her, listen, like you don't have to go to the school in US. You could go to school abroad. Right. And I had my cousin, her husband, he went to med school in Israel just because it was cheaper. And then he came back here and, did whatever he had to do. And now he works like in his field. And so like, this is the part that's like frustrating to me. It's like we live in like a really good country. And the fact that there's this high bar cost wise that if you want to get an education, you need to pony up and pay this cash, where in other countries, that's not the situation. And so I had this conversation multiple times, being literally just go to school in Europe. It's fun. You get to like see different cultures. You get to school. You won't, pay, through the roof, and, you'll have that same experience. I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts, Kevin?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So. I would definitely recommend that. So one of the other like overarching like ideas of this story too, by the way, just to take a slightly different track, was that AI will become so heavily regulated as colleges are, as housing is, as healthcare is, that it's not going to cause unemployment. It's just going to get regulated. And I've said this from the very beginning about AI, that regulation I've said will kill it, but it will certainly have it to a point where it doesn't affect the economy like people think it will.
Yeah, I think so. That comes from this underwhelming thing from Steve Altman, the guy that runs OpenAI. He thinks AI will replace all human work in the next 7 years, and everyone signs up for universal basic income in the U.S., which he touted at $13,000 a year. And I'm thinking, was he signing up for $13,000 a year? I'm not. I mean, like that's not what I signed up for. So I don't think that's going to happen. Like number one, because government regulation will step in. If that started to happen, they're not going to allow it to happen. Second, we can look at other intrusive technologies that have happened. So let's take factories, for example. When the Industrial Revolution came around, there's the same thing. The Luddites and all those guys are out there beating everyone up and trying to kill people because, we don't want you to use factories to build things. And they thought that was going to end society or end human work. It didn't. We've been talking about robots. We'll get that later, but robots also haven't really created a system where there's no one putting cars together. They're still putting cars together. They're assisting with it, but they're not doing it. So I don't think AI, and number one, I mean, it's got to get way better. Like it can't do anything of any note at this point. I mean, to work, say, hey, I'm going to replace Bobby as a coder or a teacher. I just don't see it ever happening, not in the next 20. There's just got to be some advances come around that no one's talking about or seeing yet. Some more magic that has to happen to see it. So I don't think it'll ever happen. And then when it does, humans are just going to go, really? No, we're not going to allow that to happen. No. Plus, what happens when the AI is wrong? Who gets sued? Because we, in America, hey man, something goes wrong. We need to point that finger. We need to hold someone accountable.
There's a massive ethical discussion we need to have around AI accountability and those kind of things that nobody's seemingly talking about. And I think we're not talking about it because we're not ready to the point that we need to, because these large language model AIs aren't the ones that are deciding, like, it's not that kind of AI. People are attributing more to this than it can actually do. So we will have to have that discussion though eventually. And
so let's take the three big ones. Let's take legal. Would we really trust our incarceration? Let's say that I'm falsely accused of something, to an AI lawyer that I got for free. I mean, no. I want a famous guy that's on television to keep me out of jail. Then if you're sick and you want an AI doctor, like it's life and death. These kind of decisions you have to make. Do you want an AI doctor, or do you want someone to tell you something creative or whatever? I think that's the thing. And then life and death situations in war, and should we start a war? Should we do this? Should we fight? What should we do? We need some humans involved in that. Those are the big ones that I just don't think AI is ever, we're never going to go, well, if the AI said it, I guess we're invading China now. I mean, did anyone want to not do that? Was there something else we could have figured out? So, that's what I think. What do you think, Paul?
Somewhere in the middle. I think regulation will definitely play a part, because this whole idea, let's say, of like human equality and giving equal opportunity. And if people are not being treated as human beings because they're easily like, oh, we will replace you with a machine, I think it just doesn't make us act human, because it's like we're gonna, at all costs, to make a little bit more money, we're just gonna not hire any humans and let the machine do the work. Like, people won't be up for it. And another thing I think is, instead of like even thinking about that way, I feel like AI is definitely here to stay, but it's going to be human AI assisted. So humans will always going to be in the driving seat, and they'll be going to using all those tools. But I was just thinking, because I always have weird thoughts, and putting tin hat on, right? I've been watching all these different studies for all the first world countries, right? First world countries, the birth rate is literally like decreasing at alarming rate. And so I wonder if they're thinking like ahead. It's like in 30, 40 years, we're not going to have good enough workforce. So we need to make those robots. We need to make this AI better, just so we have somebody doing some of these menial jobs that won't be able to be done because the birth rate's so crazy, which is so funny. Like, I think the average in some countries is like 1.1. I think in US it's like 1.4. And some countries, which are third world countries, the birth rate is like 5.6. So, which is kind of crazy how first world countries, like, it's moving and trending in the opposite direction, where in third world countries it's still trending upwards. But I wonder if, like, this idea of AI and creating these robots that we're going to talk about, this idea to subsidize the workforce just because there's not going to be enough people. Again, tin hat on, but take it for what it is.
That's a great segue into our next section. Let's go into that. Let's go into our Skynet Watch section. That's the weekly section where we talk about, do we need to bow down to our AI overlords at this point? I'm still in the no camp this week. Anybody in the yes camp yet?
I mean, I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm always nice to my computer. I'm always saying thank you and please, very polite, make sure we don't argue. Very important.
So this week, let's talk about some humanoid robots. I think the idea of humanoid robots have been around for a long, long, long time, right? We've talked about this for a long time. They've been things of sci-fi, but they've been things of reality too that people have tried to do for decades now. So, but now a couple of bigger companies are kind of in on this, Tesla being one of them, and Elon Musk, right? So he has a humanoid robot called Optimus, which has been around for a couple of years now. The 2021 version of this robot was actually a dude in a robot suit, which insane. Hilarious. They actually dressed the guy up in a robot suit to give a demo. It's like of a robot that they kind of fictionalize. It's like,
that's like Ultraman, or like those old Godzilla movies from the 50s and 60s, like the guy in a suit. That's not a robot. I mean, like, that's not a robot. That's not even like a prototype. That's not even pretending to be a robot. That's pretending to be a robot. That's Halloween.
This year's version, which they now have. There was a new video came out a couple weeks back with a new version of Optimus, and it can stand now and it can move around. It can do some things. It's very, very basics. It's not Boston Dynamic good, right? Like, we saw the Boston Dynamic robot before. Like, that video came out a few months back, throwing the tool bag and all that kind of good stuff. If you haven't seen that, go watch that on YouTube. Just YouTube Boston Dynamics tool bag, because we joked about it throwing a chainsaw at somebody, right? Because it's like, it doesn't really understand what the tools are. Like, it just programmed to do it. But it looks kind of impressive. The Tesla one, not as much. And then there's another company too called Figure. So Figure's this smaller company. They're about 40 people, but they have a whole bunch of like top talent, right? They have people from Boston Dynamics, Tesla, Apple, Google, or Alphabet. They hired like top of the food chain kind of people in robotics to build out their robot. We haven't seen their robot yet. We've only seen some kind of renderings of it, so we don't know what it's like. But my biggest question here is, do we need humanoid robot? Is that the form factor? Is that the thing? Is that the robot-like future? And if we do, we need that, and why?
I think so. Like, I'm really big fan of like those dystopian 80s movies. And I think that just brings us closer to that reality. But in terms of practicality, I mean, and certain, like, you don't want to be as a human be replaced like by a machine. So making something in the likeness of a human that will potentially take your job, that's kind of like messed up, but with that being said, like where I see this working out is like in hospitals, like where, they help out, take care of like the elderly or people sick, and they want to seem something familiar. I'm just trying to make a good argument for the possibility of it.
There isn't one. That's what I'm
trying. I'm trying to make
it's
it
tough.
Like a back massage. Like it's said, it's like a human looking thing, whatever that could.
That's the thing. Like, why does it have to look humanoid? It's like this weird. It seems like the human race is intent on kind of like weirdly wanting to replace itself. Like it's strange.
It's like this. Some people, and again, a huge tinfoil hat on. So, like, just have you seen like the Prometheus, the movie?
Yes.
Really good. And when the guy went and he talked to the engineers and he said, I'm like you. I'm like a god. I created like David, and then the thing just kills him and breaks David. Mm-hmm. It's this idea that humans want to kind of elevate themselves from that innate desire to be God, to be like, look what I've done. Absolutely. I feel maybe some of these overzealous tech people, of course, they're not going to share this publicly, so I'm reading their minds for them.
I don't know, Elon might.
But they're literally, trying to, like, I'm going to make this utopian world. I'm going to create this society. Like, look how amazing it's going to be. And I feel like that type of thinking from the position that they are, where they're not like normal human beings, like in a sense that they're like part of like the, not elite, but like it's a high class. They made it. They don't like, they don't have the same troubles like you and I have in our daily life. So they might be thinking about life so differently and so disconnected. So then in their view, they might think like, look, we're doing these things to solve this huge problem, but not really realizing that that's not what like humanity needs. Again, tinfoil hat.
So I think a lot of it comes from where, as a society, maybe, and this is me just thinking, my opinion is that we less and less, as we go advance society, specifically in America, we don't value work anymore. So we don't value what we do and that work product that we create. And so like, I think then there's a lot of people that would like to eliminate humans because you don't have to pay them. You can work them 24/7. So they have this real weird sense of like, I could do this. But I think it's a problem or a solution looking for a problem. Like, I don't think a human or robot is the right form factor. Yeah. Like, if AI came around and it was going to be a doctor, it doesn't have to be in the form of a human. It would just, just put a speaker in the room. You just need Alexa. That's really what you need. You don't need anything more than that. If it could put a car together, well, there's a better form factor for that. You don't need a human carrying the part around. You need a conveyor belt system and like claws, and it just, it doesn't need to go from, like, it's weird because like if you want a humanoid robot to put a car together, you act like the thing is going to clock out and clock in. It's never clocking out. It's never leaving the building. Like, it
never has to shut down.
So why does it just put it on tracks, where it can, move really fast, I just don't understand it. Now, robots have been used I've seen welding robots, pretty cool. I've had the privilege of seeing that at Deer Hitachi. It's kind of cool. Where people are coding those things to do welds and that kind of stuff, and does a really good job. But they're not putting the whole tractor together or the whole, front end loader. I mean, there's still other people working there. So I think it has a long ways to go. And to this day, we have yet to see a humanoid robot walk around for 15 minutes. Like, so battery power is a problem. Boston Dynamics, if you give it something extremely specific, it can do it. But like, hey, come to the office on Monday and me and Paul will figure out what we can get you to do. That's kind of how the job starts. You started the job before, hey, what are we going to do on Monday? We'll figure it out when you get here. Just glad to have you on board. It's like the robot needs like instructions, you got to code it up, what's it going to do? Yeah. It never leaves. So I don't get it.
Been replacing like hotel, greeting people with robots and stuff like that. So they are like leading the way. But for me, like, I feel like, there's got to be more to this, why they're making human form, write this on the edge, but I think some of them probably need a companion. That's what they're doing.
No, I think
they
that's
watch
it.
that Ex Machina movie and they're like, I could be that person.
Yeah, they've watched iRobot.
Blade Runner. I mean, Blade Runner always goes there. I mean, like it's always the companion bot, or that's where it goes. I mean, like society can't like figure out another thing.
And so
for this
to
thing
me,
to
like
do.
that's what I think they have way
it's
too much time on their hands thinking about stuff like that, and they just want to be the first one to do it. And I'm like, no, why don't you just step down and like think about like on the more normal human being level, what do people need, and definitely not more humanoid robots.
Speaking of companion bot, Paul, I did watch your movie recommendation, Cherry 2000.
Insane,
an 80s classic.
It is.
It
really is.
It's classic. I would say everybody go watch it. It's an
such
movie.
a good movie. Like the first time I heard about it, I mean, you know what I mean. When I say good 80s movie, it's because it's really bad. But it is an 80s classic, and 100% go check it out.
Does that synthesized music? Does it have that? Like the Blade Runner style music? Or?
There's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Terminator had it too.
It's very like what they thought the future would be in the 80s, like what they thought the year 2000 would be in the 80s, right? They put it like 20 years in the future or whatever. It's like, but it's not even close. It's kind of dystopian as well, but it's about like a humanoid robot. The whole movie is about a humanoid robot. It's kind of interesting.
Right.
Yeah, definitely go watch it. It's Cherry 2000. You watch it for free. It's online for free on like Free View or something, or one of those things. Okay, let's move on to our next topic then. Cool. Let's talk about password managers. So before I get into the topic, do you guys use a password manager?
I have to at work, but I only use it for work stuff. Like I don't use it for any of my personal stuff.
I use it for everything.
I say we don't say which ones we used. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you which one I use. Just for security reasons. But I will say there was a big company. There's one of the bigger ones in the market is called LastPass. They had recently they had a story where they had a couple of hacks, right? They had 2 hacks kind of back to back. They got hacked once where this is the official quote. So what was taken was the backup data that was taken had both unencrypted data like website URLs and website names or usernames, password, and secure notes and fill form data, all those things that were actually encrypted in 256-bit AES. So they basically took the entire database from LastPass. They hacked the whole thing, took all the user data.
At least they had it encrypted at rest.
Exactly.
At least
it was encrypted. So. But the downside of that is if you're not using good enough passwords, they can be cracked. We'll talk about that in a second. So they have access to your encrypted data if you were using LastPass. Then the second hack happened. Same company, I guess, or same hacker or same whatever it was outfit. Like they were able to retain access, and they stole credentials from a senior DevOps engineer. They put a keylogger on his home machine.
Oh my God.
So they basically captured his password, got him to 2-factor in, and captured everything, and then got access to their Amazon cloud. They got access to the vault that contained all the cloud storage environment, all the encrypted keys, all the customers' data, everything that was in Amazon Vault. So they basically got all the data again through a different method. So it comes down to, should we use a password manager? Do you guys find it useful to? Is this a problem that when we put it in these cloud storage password managers, is that an issue? Is there an alternative?
So like I've said before, like everyone is either in AWS or Azure. And if those things are compromised, then everything's compromised. That's just back to AI. That's my whole problem with ChatGPT and OpenAI, that it could I call it jumping the shark, and people think it can't happen. I mean, yeah, it can. I mean, if that DevOps engineer was a Microsoft employee, it absolutely can happen. So I think we need to move beyond passwords. Passwords suck anyway. But in general, you should be okay. But if your password is, if you have a password that you use a lot, like a lot of people I know use the same password for everything.
Monkey
like
1 2 3 4. Oh wait, I didn't mean to say out loud.
Yeah, my brother.
Password
but it has 8 characters. I'm like, whatever, dude. And then I think what you can do is, you can't crack the hash per se, but you can compare 2 hashes together. And if you know one password on the other end and the hashes match, know the password, and now you have the URL, the username, and all you need is the password. It's a problem.
That's the issue. So if you have a common password, you're right. You're matching those hashes. If your password is one of those, if your password is password, it's the most easily. It doesn't matter. You can use password 3 times in a row. Even it's
Right.
still going to be easy to crack.
Well, in LastPass's case, they use salt. So like they'll put a salt in there, so password would be hashed 3
Right.
different ways, and so it wouldn't match. But if you have a known password and you actually know certain things, which they know, like the algorithms, that kind of stuff, they can regenerate a hash and then go down there and find it. So that's kind of one of the it's a problem. So
But that's a problem for more common passwords, right? If my password is 30 characters long and it's just mixed characters, that's way more difficult.
No, it's not, because like if let's say that you were compromised on another website and you're using password 123 at that's your complicated one, and then but you use it in every place. Now they have a list of URLs, and then they know the hash of that. So now they know that password that you're using there is password 123 at, and they can absolutely and it doesn't matter how long it is or like what it. They're just looking at the hash, and then they'll do it. So, and then another thing too is like encryption is made to be broken with sufficient compute power. Yep. So, if you have all day to do something, you can eventually get through it. People say it'll take them 30 years. I'm like, yeah, until
computers
some
get more.
Till they get it into.
Well, that's the thing. There was a point in time where, like
Apple.
A few years back, they were like, "Well, 8 characters is enough." Then it became 10. Now it's 12. Now I make all of mine 30 characters random, and I use a password manager to store them. It's
right.
It's the only amount of security I can use. I can't do any more than that at this point.
Right.
Yeah, and then the longer it is, it's harder to remember. So I have to make mine something silly, like your mama joke. That's gonna be my whole password. It's right. It's the interesting thing about I don't use all those password sources, because what happens if you don't have access to it? Then you have to log into something and you're like, I don't remember my password anymore. And it happens to me all the time at work. And so I usually just do the old school way and hope that nobody ever steals anything from me. No,
I definitely use a password manager. Definitely have long passwords. You got to remember one master password, which as long as you can remember that, you can get in.
The other thing is, do not use your master password anywhere else. Ever. You can only use it once. And don't store your master password inside the password site itself. That's the one you have to remember.
I forgot what service I used. I can't recall it, but it literally gave you all the different attempts where somebody tried to log in as you using your email, and then it also shows all the passwords they tried. And I was really shocked how close they were to my actual password, maybe 3-4 characters missing. So I was like, this is legit. So I had to update all my passwords, because it was they're really getting close. And I'm trying to recollect where would they get their data, and they're literally probably scraping your Facebook, your Instagram, everything, because and trying to find commonalities that's oh, this would make sense to have a password.
Well, believe it or not, if you took all of human society and you took all their passwords, I bet you there's a lot of people who use the same things. And so they put these in dictionary tags, and they put them in there and they run them in there, and you're like, how did they know that? It's because everyone else thinks that John Favreau is awesome, and they use his first and last name with the @ sign. Everyone else likes Robert Downey Jr.
I have a funny story about this. This guy I used
to
work for, he was so proud of his password because he's like, it's so silly, no one will have it. And it was a monkey something like his birthday or whatever. And then I had a friend who was going to school.
The fact that you know his password is
because
hilarious.
He trusted me enough to share the password, which basically was a way to get into all of our Google campaigns. I could have done serious damage, by the way. But the funniest thing was I had another friend who just started his cybersecurity, literally his first class he went to. And he's learning about like common passwords, stuff like that. And I was talking to him, and he goes to me, you know what the most common password is? Like monkey. I'm like, I knew it. That's what it is. That's just so funny.
Yeah.
But this person was like, nobody will ever use monkey. That's just so stupid. Like, why?
You're right. There's a bunch of like common things that are like going to be used in people's passwords, people's names, years, like birthdays, anything related, pet names, like all that kind of stuff are going to be. There's only hundreds or thousands of those, and that's not difficult to kind of brute force something with thousands of words.
It's crazy. The most common, I think, template is you start with the capital letter, your first one, then said some pet name or something, your birthday, exclamation point. And that's like 99% of all the passwords. And if you know that, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like...
There's a pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a regex for that.
Exactly.
I need to go change my password now.
Yeah. Like it's like what everybody else is thinking. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Monkey paw.
Monkey paw. Yeah.
Pounds.
Monkey paw.
I have a friend who all his passwords are like really ridiculous, like swear word, like put down. So I'm like, bro, it's like nobody. Yeah.
Everyone's
like,
doing that, man.
special.
It's not original.
It's like, you're not offending anybody. They just want to get into your bank. That's all they want to do.
Yeah, until he has to like tell somebody his password for some reason. He's like, my IT at work calls, and he's like, you really have to give me your password. He's like, let me just. I need to change that again.
Comedian Kevin Hart, he's super funny, but he has like a bit with his son. His son like was doing something on his phone, and he's like, "Let me see your phone." And the son's like, "No." It's like, "Show me your phone." And the son's like, "No." And then it's like, "Show me your phone." Like, and the son goes, "F you," and throws the phone at him. And so Kevin Hart gets mad. He's like, Chase, I'm going to beat the living daylights out of this kid right now. How can he? And he's like about to hit his kid. And his kid, no, that's the password. I had to kind of reiterate the joke, based on the show. But you go check it out. Find like Kevin Hart. That's hilarious. It's so funny.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So just to say, if you do use a password manager, great. I say continue to use it. Even if you're using LastPass, I would say maybe switch from LastPass based on current issues that they have. Yeah. But some alternatives, like 1Password is really popular.
Yep.
Bitwarden, Dashlane, Keeper. There's a bunch of these. Some of them have free versions. Some of them are paid. You can also use some
aren't in the cloud.
Ones too. Yeah, some ones that are on a local machine too, which have their own set of problems. Right? If it runs on your local machine, I get it. It's encrypted. It's only local, but that's a piece of hardware. As soon as you forget that all your passwords are stored on it, and you buy a new laptop, and you're like, "Oh, I give my old one to my cousin or something." Now, like that's gone. You've lost your.
KeyPass would be a common one that we used before we went to a cloud one.
Yep.
So,
okay, let's move on to our final topic then. I wanted to talk about. We haven't talked about this yet, but I wanted to talk about Apple or Android. So, cell phone, what are you rocking? An Apple device or an Android device? Then I want to know why.
So Alex isn't here, but I learned something in one of our podcasts I didn't know, that if you're in a group text and you're on an Android and everyone else on an Apple, that your thing has a green bar around it. They know that you're slumming around with an Android phone. I just think that's funny. That Apple does that. Like, by the way, this is an inferior phone, but we'll let the text come through anyway.
Literally says that.
But it's not the case on Android. So, like, if I'm looking at the Android here,
they're taking the higher ground.
Where the text came from.
I see, being better people.
We're not like judging people based on their technology decisions. Like we don't look down on them. Like, oh, they've got.
It's probably because, it's.
So you're saying you're Android then, Bobby? Why are you Android? Why are you? Is it a conscious decision?
I thought about this quite a lot in doing this, and I really don't have a good reason. I mean, like every device that I use at work is an Apple device. I have a Mac Studio Pro, I have an iPad for for other things, and I have a Samsung 21
Listen,
Plus.
that makes no sense.
I mean, like I don't know.
No sense.
But here's the other thing too. The thing people say, well, Androids are cheaper. Well, this isn't.
No,
I mean, like
flagship is a flagship. Like, they're the
$1,000 to $1,400, just like the iPhones. The only thing I can guess is Kevin I can take a picture of the moon with it.
Exactly.
So you can't.
I use an Apple phone just because it works so well with my ecosystem between like my Mac, my MacBook, my iPad. So easy to share things. So to me, it's literally the convenience thing of it, and you do pay like the Apple tax. But it's funny because a lot of my cybersecurity like friends or people who like use Linux, they all have Androids, which is funny. It's like
Yeah.
Well, they're easier to jailbreak. You can break them down. So I have a business partner in my company, and like the first thing he does when he gets an iPhone and he gets an Android device is the first thing he does is jailbreak it. I'm like, really? Like, why? I mean, I don't understand. Like, he's like into that, and that's what he does. And whereas I I just use the phone when it comes out of the store. I don't even go to the app stores. I thought about, do I care about the Google Play Store or the Apple? I don't download a lot of apps on I don't use my phone that way.
Okay.
So I'm kind of I'm not even a power user. I just use it to text
Android
and check
phones, though,
Teams.
they're so hard to use. Like if you only used Apple phone and someone gives you an Android phone and says, "Can you fix something?" You might as well just throw it out the window, because my mom, she drives me nuts to a point where I bought her an iPhone because I got sick and tired going over there and feeling like an idiot, like trying to figure out where's stuff on the Android phone. I'm like, what am I literally have to look stuff up on Google, read documentation, and to me it's just like, yeah, exactly, Android docs. And I'm like, that's just too much work. And I literally told my mom, I threw her phone hoping that it would break just so I could have a reason to go. And it didn't break, but I was like, let's go to the Apple store. You're just gonna have so much easy experience.
I would say it is whatever you get used to, though.
Yeah,
I would say it's the other way around too. If you're an Android user, going on an Apple device is I don't understand how that works, or how do you switch apps, or how do you it's just it is whatever you get used to. So,
well, it is one of the other problems, Kevin, with Android, and this is true, is if you're using a Samsung device, you get used to an experience. And I know that my wife, I bought her a phone, and she didn't want to spend the money on a Samsung, so she got this low rent LG phone. And then when I use it, it's completely different. So I'm with you on the podcast. I'm like, what is this? Where is the settings? I just want to turn Bluetooth on. Where is it? So whereas Apple, they're all kind of universal and the same. So even for the most part, I mean, from 6 to 7, obviously 6 really old, but if you get up to 12, 13, 14, the OS hasn't changed a great deal. You pretty much use it and get it working if someone has a problem. Android, not so much. Your mileage varies based on what they bought.
Exactly.
Not going to lie to you, I really like the foldable Android phone. And I don't care what people say about the crease, but it's pretty cool.
Okay.
I mean, it's not for everybody, I will admit to that. But, if you want to
the idea, I just...
Yeah, what I like about it is because there's certain experiences I like to have on my iPad mini, which is way better than on the phone. And then sometimes I just want to look at my phone. And then when I go out somewhere, I'm like, would it be nice where I don't have to bring my iPad, but I could unfold it? So if Apple comes up with a foldable phone or something, of course I get it. But
won't happen. So what you're asking for is what's coming is you want a pair of glasses that
would work too, to be honest. That would be fine. Yeah,
that's what's coming. Foldable screens are one of those flip phones of the past. It's just not.
But here's the thing, though. I like writing, but I don't have any pens or paper in my house. But I do have an iPad and an iPencil, and sometimes I'll jot stuff down. I don't write all the time, but some about that tactile experience is kind of nice. And there's a product, I forgot what it's called, but it's not like an iPad. It's kind of like those ebook readers, black and white, the paper Kindle. And so it's you could see it with no glare, and it really simulates that real life writing experience. I was thinking of getting that because there's something about having that tactile sense of interacting with your device.
It's just, they're so expensive. Insane. I forget. I know exactly. I've looked at them because I have 1,000 of these Moleskin books that I keep notes in, and that's what I do. I take notes in meetings. And so I don't ever review them, but I always have a piece of paper and a pen everywhere I go. And I've thought about getting one of those just to cut down on my stack of used notebooks that are just all expensive.
I'm sure someone will create this app, which will be the AR glasses. You'll have your notebook, but when you write in a notebook, you're not literally writing in a notebook. It's just simulating you're writing it and then saving it inside your glasses and your data. So when you look at your notebook, you see the writing. There's really nothing there in reality. It's just projected. And what you're writing, you're simulating that experience. Yeah. But that'll be kind of slick.
There you go. That's a killer app. That is a killer app.
There you go. There you go, man.
So I've used both Apple and Android over the last decade, right? I've used both Apple and Android. I had an Apple phone when it first came out. I've had multiple flagship Android phones, including Galaxies. I had a couple of HTC phones. I've gone kind of back and forth. I'm currently an Apple user, and one of the same reasons as Paul, ecosystem is a big one. I have the phone, the watch, the iPad, the Mac, the TV, whatever they sell, I have one of, right? So the ecosystem just works for me. Everything works together. It's seamless. I can copy and paste between all of them. I can shoot back and forth with AirPods, whatever. They all work on all the machines. It's just easy. That's one thing. I also prefer the Apple hardware design. I just prefer it. I just like it. I think it's just better. I don't know. Just a thing that I prefer.
Just don't be afraid. Just say the facts. Yeah. It's way better, looking.
It's just
and
better.
engineered. It feels better in your hands.
It is to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And when I text you can get the green
yeah. Look
bar
at this non-Apple user.
There's Bobby on his old Android phone.
That's it. Ease of use is a big one for me too. So, like your business partner, Bobby, I used to enjoy kind of like jailbreaking something, having it be completely customizable. And you can do that on Android. It's easy. Sideload stuff. You can jailbreak it. You can do whatever. And it's kind of like free for all with it. You can do whatever you want with it. You can totally customize the look and the screen and do all this kind of cool stuff. And I used to like doing that. Now I don't. Now I just want it to work. And the difference is the Apple one will just work. And it's a walled garden, and I like that it's a walled garden. I just like the fact that it's going to work in a certain way, and I don't have to like mess with anything. It's customizable enough to get it to a point where I can make it mine, but not overly customizable, where to me it makes it to a point where it's like unsecure. I've had an issue with, so what happened to me before, I had an Android phone and there was a game came out. The game was called 2048. It was one of these like number matching games. Okay. It was like, this was a few years back. And at the time I had an Android and I was like, oh, I want to play that game. Cool. I go to the App Store and I put in 2048, 500 different options come up. And I'm like, wow, which one is the actual game that got released? So I had to do a little bit more research to find the actual game. And it was like halfway down the page, right? It was like 5th or 6th in the list with the actual original game. The rest of them were just clones and copies and who knows what else they were. Probably filled with malware or whatever, because apparently you could put anything on that store. And I was like,
you could in the beginning.
Yeah,
it
I was like, this is
West,
a terrible experience. Like, I do not like this experience.
You have to pay $99 to be a developer for Apple.
There was a barrier.
I pay it every year.
There's a certain barrier. They take stuff out of the store. Like, I want Apple to do that for me. Yeah. I didn't want to have to do that myself. So I didn't like that experience. There were too many like imposter apps. That's what I kind of called them. And I felt like there was too many opportunities to download software that would just ruin my phone. Mm-hmm. You don't get that on Apple.
Sure.
The one thing that I would say, I love Apple, but some of the things that they do, it's like, I don't agree with, but at the same time, I cannot not use Apple just because of how convenient it is. But the whole idea of right to repair and how they're treating that, and basically very close ecosystem. And so there's definitely pros and cons, but at the same time, they do make such a convenient product that like it makes my life way easier, because I don't have to think about pretty much like all the things you mentioned, because it just works and then it integrates so well with everything I do.
Yep. The right to repair thing.
I will say that Android now is probably, they push the needle more on the high end phones more than Apple does, and Apple kind of like follows up with what they're doing. But I think that's one of the things. It used to be that the processors and hardware were the big things. When you got into an Android device, they were just slower, and then Apple was faster. But now when you go to a flagship at Samsung, it's the same kind of specs that's in a high-end iPhone. What is weird about me that I don't understand why I haven't switched over to an iPhone is that an iPhone is an American product, and I'm like always buy American, and I'm sitting here on my 5th Samsung phone, like, I should hand my flag in or something,
I know, what am I doing?
I drive Fords. I won't drive anything else. I'll never buy a foreign car, but for some reason it's Samsung or die. I don't know what it is.
Another pet peeve that I have, and it was related to the upgradability. So when iOS 16 point whatever comes out, right? I just download it on my phone. I click a button and it's there, same day, right? When Android whatever comes out, depending on your carrier, you may wait literally forever to get it.
Wow.
When I had the last Android phone that I had, I was on AT&T. A new version of Android came out. I didn't get it for like 7 months.
It's because they're changed. They optimize the thing to the front. Now, Oddly enough, this device seems like it's updating every other week, and I just think.
But I wonder which version of Android it's running. I don't know if that's maybe that's a problem that they've solved. I don't know. But you'll find like the only way to get the latest version, at least when I was doing it, the only way to get the latest version of Android on the phone is to have an unlocked Google Pixel phone. Wow. That's the only way you could upgrade day one to the latest version of Android. Otherwise, you had to wait for either Samsung or your carrier or whoever to push that upgrade to you. And like I said, one time it was months before I got that upgrade. I'm like, same day, man. What's this? Like it came out, like I couldn't get it. I called the carrier to be like, hey, am I supposed to get this? They're like, we haven't pushed it yet. And they just didn't for months and months and months for whatever reason. I don't know why, but on an iOS device, if it's out today, you can get it today.
Yep, that's because the hardware manufacturers are third party, so it's a third party manufacturer. So they take a build of Android and then they make their phone work on it. They change the UI. They can do all that stuff on it. So when the new Android release comes out, they're testing it, integrating it back in. So there is a lag on that. I don't know how fast Samsung does it. I was just looking to see what my latest version was.
Yeah, I wonder what that is. I don't know what the latest version of
it won't matter
Android
what it is. But like it's something. I don't even know what the latest Android.
Yeah, I don't know either. I really don't follow it.
The one thing I hate about iPhones is the hype for every new phone that comes out every year and how you're obligated to buy it. And I felt so bad because I had iPhone 12 and I bought iPhone 13 and I don't even know what iPhone we're on now. But like I'm like
14.
Yeah, and literally no difference whatsoever. I literally spent $1,000 on a phone I didn't need, and I just every day I look at it and I despise myself for it. And
I will admit I have bought them back-to-back years, but I'm at a point now where I
know you have. You tell me you're like.
But I'm at a point now where
like, really?
I don't do it every year. I didn't buy a 13. I had a 12, and then I bought a 14. And it depends on It depends on what's the features of the next one, right? If the 15 has some feature that I want, I'll buy it. But if it doesn't, I'll kind of skip a generation, and it's okay.
I'm on a Samsung 21.
What came out? Just 23, right?
It just updated. My phone just updated. See, this thing is legit, dude.
Yeah, but it upgraded to the latest version of Android that was 6 months ago. I don't know.
Funny that it updated during the
probably
show.
Hurts you. It's like we gotta prove Kevin wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So but I'm with you, Kevin. I don't see that unless the screen was cracked. I would never. I'm not going to update it. Unless I wanted a bigger one. And like if they came out bigger,
the form
and I
factor changed a bunch. Yeah,
we did that.
I don't know how much bigger can they get at this point. It's like you want an iPad. Like, what are you saying?
Are we going smaller now?
No, yeah, I do. I do want them bigger. This one isn't big enough. I would like it bigger. I use it in lieu of an iPad.
Hence that foldable phone that folds just to fit in your pocket.
I saw a guy and I did put my hands on it. It's really cool. You know why I don't like foldable phones though? And you'll probably be, you'll feel good about this. It's trying to teach CSS and how to get an app to display on a foldable phone in the browser extension. Like we're not supporting that. Like, they got one of those, man.
That's true. One of the issues with those phones is that because the screen is so weird, it will display majority of stuff in like the phone view and not in like the native screen view of the foldable phone. So it's not quite desktop, but it's not quite like So that's annoying.
Yeah. So you have to have custom media queries, and it's a problem. And until that thing becomes like super like everyone has a foldable phone, maybe then I'll adopt it. But otherwise, like in this, we'll go through the browser extensions in the Cutter Finder and like, don't worry about foldable phones. No one has one.
Except like 1-2 people.
Spoken like a true educator. Don't worry about it. Screw it. Who's running IE6 anyway? We don't need it.
Literally, one of the devs comes to the owner and says, "This was like my first company, worked in a terrible place." And it goes to the owner. Whenever I try to run your app and internet and like Explorer, it just doesn't work. And the guy literally says, well, we don't want people to use them. We only support Chrome. That was like his answers. Like, that's it.
Exactly.
Chrome or nothing. That's what you get. But the funny thing is it's based on their Windows, desktop app where a lot of people are used to using like the Windows browser, and they have an expectation. Well, since you're making it mobile, it should work on like whatever the Windows at the time was Windows Explorer. Now they have like Edge browser or whatever the hell it's called, which is way nicer.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's funny.
Yeah, Internet Explorer, those wars were like, I mean, I can tell you, I'm a Microsoft fanboy, is the biggest one as days long, but like there was a period of time, like in the early 2000s, like just quit making this thing. What are you doing? You're making my life crazy. Like you had all of these CSS hacks and all these things, if IE6 and if this and if that, you know, and you had like all these, it drove me insane. Can y'all just quit making this? Or could network Nazis quit having a like a global policy that installs Internet Explorer because that's the secure one? Like, just can y'all just install Chrome? I mean, like, let's just get over with it. If the government would come in and regulate just one browser, I think I'd be on board with that. That'd be one regulation I might support.
We'd never see.
That we could kill
never
Opera.
see innovation in browsers.
We could kill Brave. Yeah, exactly. Kill Edge off. You know, just use Chrome. They did a pretty good job. You know. But then it would never get updated, I guess.
That's it. It would kill the innovation.
And they start charging for it.
Okay, well, that's it. That's this week's episode of the Not Null podcast. Again, I only ask you to do one thing if you've made it all the way to the end here this far. Actually, two things, I guess I'm asking you to do. If you could leave a review anywhere, that would be great. Wherever you listen to this, if you have the option to leave a review, that would be awesome. But only if you love it, of course. Don't leave us like a 1-star or something. That would be very nice. But if you hated it, you probably didn't get this far. So you would leave us a 5-star at this point, right? And then also share this podcast with somebody that you think might like it. That will definitely help us out. So we'll be back again next week for another one of these. We're going to be Alex-less again, I think, next week. So he's off traveling. I
Poor
think.
guy.
Is he,
he's traveling.
Is he going to jail or something? Do we know what's
vacation?
Yeah. When you work in Fang, you get 2 weeks of contiguous vacation.
I thought maybe like he was having too much fun, that his significant other was like, no, you cannot have too much fun. You cut off for 2 weeks. Come up with a story that you want to come up. Tell him it's a vacation. Whatever you want to do, have to do. You do it. But we need to at least, you know.
So if you guys want to tweet at Alex, he's at Tech Rally on Twitter. You can ask him why he's not here this week, and then he's not here next week either. So, but we'll be here. So we'll have some new topics, and we will see you guys then.